why is this happening? And it's like, yeah, because you killed that kid. The kid died.
Smashed a kid with a dirt bike.
Yeah.
You're still listening. This is our final transmission.
We're here.
We are here, Sam. Christmas is over. We're back into the Halloween of it all.
We're back into the hell of it all. How are you feeling post Crimbo?
I'm feeling pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah.
I'm feeling acutely aware that when I look at myself in this video call that I look a lot like Pumpkinhead.
I don't think you look like Pumpkinhead. You look more like that baby from the Aphex Twin video.
Even better.
All hipster Nosferatu over here.
Whether or not I look like Pumpkinhead, I definitely feel like Pumpkinhead. And we're here today, by sheer coincidence, to discuss the 1988 cult witch monster slasher feast for the eyes, Pumpkinhead, the movie. How are you feeling about it?
I mean, we'll get into the meat of it, but Pumpkinhead, it's a goodie, isn't it?
It's a banger. Oh boy, is it tight, taut, and perfect, and tasty in all the right places. I really, really fucking like this movie a lot.
Yeah, I think it's just such a boon to have what would be a pretty run-of-the-mill sort of monstery, slashery, late 80s, low-budge horror flick. But it's just so good to have that incredible central performance from old Lancey boy.
Yeah, and I mean, I hadn't seen Lard boy Henriksen. I hadn't seen Lance Henriksen in a leading role before. I mean, I considered his performance in the Alien movies a leading role, but that's just because he was my favorite character. But I hadn't seen him really take the center stage. And, you know, I saw this quite a long time ago. I think I saw this in my teens, and it stuck with me for forever. Like his performance in particular, but the movie as a whole has a lasting effect, I think.
Lance Henriksen is one of those actors. Do you know like how every action star now stars in like 2 good movies and then just moves into straight to DVD, low rent trash?
Yeah.
Like, I think Lance Henriksen, you fucker, you did this. I think Lance Henriksen is the blueprint for that.
Yeah.
Because he moved so fluidly between it. But the difference is when Bruce Willis, R.I.P. his brain, but when Bruce Willis is in all of these, like, I don't know, thrill, kill, shot head, or whatever they call these title of any of these movies.
Kill, shot head.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of a title for a low budget sort of action movie that Bruce Willis would be photoshopped into.
Shotgun
like
head.
He's basically like asleep for these entire movies. Whereas Lance Henriksen brings it all day, every day. He's just a man who I think he just can't turn it off. Like he's born to act. Like Willem Dafoe.
He's like Michael Caine in A Muppet Christmas Carol. He's given everything he's got to everything he's got. And oh boy, does he pummel the ass off this movie.
He really does. The ass is pummeled off this movie. Do you want to give us a quick synopsis and then we'll take a break?
Yeah. Lance Henriksen plays Ed Harley, not Ed Hurley, as I kept writing in my notes. Lance Henriksen plays Ed Harley, and Ed Harley is a tragic hero, in my opinion. Yeah. The events that befall him are not his fault.
They're kind of his fault. He makes some bad decisions.
Sure, but he makes them in the grip of grief. He is.
True.
Hey, we'll get to that later. Just give the synopsis, you dick. There's a tragic accident, and Lance Henriksen's son dies. Yeah. He seeks revenge on the unwitting, bumbling city teens who committed. Fuck's sake.
Said atrocity.
Sorry, I can't do. Let me start again.
Okay.
There is a tragedy, and a man seeks revenge. He seeks the revenge of the death of his son by visiting a shack in the woods wherein lives a witch.
Called Haggis.
The witch brings to life an evil monster which, twinned with Ed Harley's mind and heart and soul, ravages its way through the woods on a demented killing spree.
I mean, that's it. That's the movie.
It, right? That's basically it. Good.
If you want a more detailed synopsis, I would recommend going to listen to the song Pumpkinhead by Michale Graves and the Misfits Boys.
That Graves-era Misfits jam is a synopsis of the movie. It's more a retelling of the movie, blow by blow, beat by beat. It's great.
Absolutely.
It's not the best on that record. And, say what you want about Michale Graves. We're both huge Famous Monsters fans. How do you rate that song on the album? It's not a fave.
It's not a fave, but it's got that good refrain from the movie, the stay away from Pumpkinhead unless you're tired of living. That's cool.
It is. It's great.
I think I heard the song before I saw the movie, so I was like, fuck yeah, I'm well in for this.
Yeah, and I remember I was the other way around. I'd already seen the movie, then I heard the song, and I was like, oh, this is like the fucking anthem of the movie. And the movie, for me, is a bit of an unsung hero of 80s monster movies. So I was like, finally, it's getting its soundtrack that it deserved. So I like both. I like the movie a lot more. But wow, I mean, what a thing to have a song in the world about Pumpkinhead. It's great.
What's your favorite Graves-era Misfits jam?
Dust
is
to
it
Dust.
Scream? Dust to Dust, right?
Yeah. Scream is one of my favorite videos of all time. But Dust to Dust was the first song I heard of that era. It was the first song I heard off that album. It was on a Kerrang sampler or something. And it kicks dick. It's so good. What about you?
The first song that I heard from that era was Fiend Club. Which
strong.
It's strong, but it's not a fave. That was also on a Kerrang. I think it was called it was like a punk sampler that came with Kerrang. It was like a big intro to so much punk that I love.
Nice.
I think it went from Look What Happened by Less Than Jake into Fiend Club into God Called In Sick Today by AFI.
Holy cow.
And I was just like, yeah, these three songs are my entire teen personality now.
Jamie's big three.
Yeah. But my favorite Graves-era Misfits song is Forbidden Zone. The Planet of the Apes one.
Zone. What a banger.
Yeah. So good.
Early album track. Big hit.
Yeah, they didn't even need to write two verses. Just repeat it. The Ben Small way.
Just keep saying the same shit. It's great.
It's so good.
It's really good. Pumpkinhead, maybe not even top 5 on that album, but it's great that it exists. I mean, I feel like we're talking way too much about this, aren't we? But I feel like that was Graves trying to be Danzig too much, and it didn't really work. But he tried.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Michael Graves has different cinematic horror touch points to Danzig.
Yeah,
so
sure.
whereas Danzig's singing about old Vincent Price movies, Michael Graves is singing about the movies that meant something to him because he is 50 years younger than everyone else in the Misfits. I think that's cool. I mean, obviously he's a fucking Nazi and kill him in the head or whatever, but you can't take that album and half of American Psycho away from him.
No, he's a real piece of crap, but good songs.
And on that note, let's go for a break, Sam.
Oof, I need one.
Whoa, holy shit. I guess that's why they call it Phantom Power.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi, Sam. A little Robin told me that you've got something special out for Christmas. Is that true?
A little red-breasted, loose-lipped Robin has been talking to you.
Yeah. It flew in my window, landed on my shoulder, and said, Sam's released a special Christmas record, 7-inch, with some amazing artwork and 2 great songs on it.
That's good work from the Robin, not paying that Robin enough. Yes, I put out a 7-inch this festive season. It's out on Red Scare Industries. It's called Mistletoe Pier, and it has 2 very Christmassy, holiday-themed festive jams for your listening pleasure. You can pick it up in the UK on my web store. You can pick it up from redscare.net. You can get it on Bandcamp for $2, and you can stream it everywhere you stream music.
It's really good. I recommend that you do it. I heard the songs back in, I don't know, was it like August or something when you first recorded them? And I was like,
recorded in June, sent them straight to you.
yeah. And I was like, this is amazing. But now I can listen like all the plebs, and it sounds even better. It's seasonally appropriate. It's wonderful. You'd probably still enjoy it in March, but
Yeah.
get on it now.
I mean, the only thing that makes it a Christmas song is saying Christmas in the first line. The rest of it is just my usual, misery. So if you enjoy misery, get stuck in.
Is Mistletoe Pier a real place?
No, absolutely not. The songs were written and inspired by Chroma Pier,
Okay.
which is less romantic sounding.
Yeah, so it's a fiction. I've been lied to once again by fucking Sam Russo.
My gift to you this festive season, a whole pack of lies. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. And yeah, listen to it. It's really good. It's really, really good.
Thanks. And back to the show.
We're back, Sam.
Oof. I'm back. Are you back?
In the words of Violent J from the Insane Clown Posse, I am back like a vertebrae.
Is that a real lyric?
Yes.
Fucking hell.
The stanza there is, I think it's I'm Violent J and I'm back like a vertebrae. Ha 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 ha. Fuck you. Wicked clowns.
That's so good.
Obviously we've talked a lot about music that people think is objectionable and terrible already.
Yes.
But I'm a big ICP fan. I think it started ironically. Well, it started unironically, and then it was a bit ironic for a bit, and then now it's come full circle to it's just funny, silly music.
We should do an ICP episode.
We should do an ICP episode. They've done 3 movies.
Fuck my ass. I had no idea. You're going to have to drag me kicking and screaming into ICP because I see very little appeal. I'm open-minded. Take me
Well, they did a movie that's sort of a blaxploitation spoof called Big Money Hustlers. And then they did a movie that's a Western spoof called Big Money Rustlers.
Oh my God.
And then they made a movie that's like a Death Wish ripoff. Not Death Wish. Death Race 2000 ripoff.
Okay.
That's called Death Racers. Where they play like a couple of... Well, they play ICP, but they're in the Death Race.
Right.
And they're competing against an Australian team of porn stars that call themselves Vaginamite. Which I don't know if that's a pun
Really good.
on Dynamite or Vegemite because they're Australian.
Or vaginas.
So, well, obviously vaginas are in there somewhere.
Is it a stretch to say that ICP are the Steve Martin, Martin Short, Chevy Chase crew of the are they rap? Can you call ICP rap? I guess you can.
I think you can.
Of the rap world. Is that fair?
Well, they were also wrestlers. I think they are more like the Orson Welles of rap. Like they're into everything.
Yep, they got their fingers in many pies.
Yeah.
Polymaths.
Orson Welles had his finger and also his mouth in many pies.
Yes, he did. Is that how you eat a pie, with your mouth in it?
If you're in a pie eating contest, maybe.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yep. Anyway, less about pie eating contests. How can the good people support the podcast, Jamie? What can they do to back their boys?
Well, first thing you should do is open up whatever you're listening to this on right now and just slam 5 stars right into there. Because, I mean, you've not heard the episode yet, but it's a 5-star episode. Let's be honest with ourselves.
Dude, so far, we are killing it. Give it 5 stars. Come on.
You can also, if you're feeling verbose, maybe pop a little review in there as well.
Yeah.
Something really overly verbose. I want to think that you might have swallowed a thesaurus.
I want Orson Welles eating a pie from the inside out levels of verbosity.
Exactly. What else could they do, Sam?
They can fire up their modems and they can use it to go onto the internet and access a website called Instagram, and they can give us a follow at FT Horror Show, and then they can do even more. People love tapping stuff with their thumbs. Do more. Tap some stuff with your thumb and write the word lol on some things, because we've got some great content on there on that Instagram. You can also do the same on another website called TikTok, which I believe you can access at the same handle. Then once you're done with all that, you can shut it down. You can just turn around to the people around you, just be like, hey buddy, You're in the library, obviously, if you're on a desktop computer, and you can tell the people in the library to follow us too. And then you can go around your Uncle Larry's house, take him your Christmas leftovers, flick him in the nuts, and say, "Follow FT Horror Show," and listen to some great shit about horror movies. I think that's almost everything you can do.
There's one more key crucial thing, Sammy.
It's very important that you
sign up to the Patreon and give us, in the words of Bob Geldof, I'm back like a... No, give us your fucking money.
If your grandma slipped you £2.63 in a Christmas card this year, why don't you take that money and buy 50 hours of content on the FT Horror Show Patreon, where you can hang out with us in the wasteland as a bunker chud or a wastoid or a gore warlock and dig deep into some dirty backstage commentary stories, fun times.
Yes, absolutely. It's an investment in your future. It's like if you signed up to a masterclass or a maestro thing to learn how to write like Alan Moore or whatever. This is like a masterclass in talking shit, specifically with Sam Russo.
Here's a question. Is it pervy if you want to buy a masterclass just because you fancy the person doing it?
Yes. I don't think people are signing up to... I'm guessing this is Amy Poehler.
Yep.
I don't think people are...
You know me so well.
I didn't think it was fucking Noam Chomsky, did I? So
I do fancy that guy too.
He was a stud.
We'll come back to gnomes later, won't we?
We will come back to gnomes later.
Who else can link Chomsky and Pumpkinhead? Only us. Give us your fucking money.
Right. That's all the ways that you could support us. And now that you've done all of those, which you definitely have, haven't you?
Of course, you've had long enough.
Then we'll talk about Pumpkinhead, which is the reason that you're here.
Oh, let's wade in. What a fucking beautiful movie. I get so excited when I get a chance to talk to anyone about Pumpkinhead. There's barely a second I don't enjoy this movie visually. Let's just go in hard, Jamie. How do you feel about the movie Pumpkinhead? When did you first see it? What does it bring up for you in your life? So
I think I must have been 15, 16. It was, like I say, post having heard the song, the Misfits song. So I was always going to like it because my entire personality when I was 15 was liking Misfits, along with terrible nu metal and a bunch of punk. I was just primed to like a dirty, slimy, sort of gothy, sad movie like this. It's not one that I revisit super often or even like... I think maybe when I was 15, I liked it, but I'd forgotten all of the actual stuff that I think is good now. Yeah. I was just like, hey, there's a big monster and it's killing people and that's fucking cool, right? Whereas now I'm looking at it and I'm like, there are some really interesting meditations on grief and some really strong performances and some really interesting things to say about like what revenge does to people. And
boy.
Yeah, I think it's just really cool. It's a film that keeps on giving. Like the movie that I enjoyed when I was 15, it's basically a completely different movie to the movie that I'm enjoying now. And that's the beauty of Stan Winston's Pumpkinhead.
I couldn't agree more. And for a late 80s, rubber and mist monster movie, that's pretty massive. You know what I mean? Something that's that revisitable and that has so many layers. And that is talking about things that are really, really deep and quintessential to the human experience. Like, that's a pretty big swing for the fences. And, I had a similar experience. I watched it because it looked like kind of a goofy throwaway rental, which, me and my friends would do on a Friday night. And all of us were kind of stunned into silence because we were enjoying a great film that did all the things we wanted it to for a Friday night monster flick, but was also really fucking with us. And I found it really scary. We'll talk about the monster. Obviously, we'll do a whole section on the titular Pumpkinhead. But I found the movie really unsettling, quite unnerving, and it did the same thing to me that those Warlock movies did that I watched around the same time. It just made me feel quite sick and frightened. And I was probably around the same age as you, I would imagine, sort of maybe 16, 17, actually, now that I think about it. And I put it in my head in a similar place to Pet Sematary, even though I don't maybe like it as much as Pet Sematary, but it does similar things for me. There's a lot of thematic similarities, and I revisit it in my mind on a similar level to that movie.
Yeah, there's definitely there's people doing fucked up supernatural things because their kid died.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a very strong correlation there with Pet Sematary.
Yeah, there's a lot of similar visuals. I feel like Ed Harley is a standalone character, a completely, singular character in horror, but he has a lot of similarities to anyone who loses a kid and seeks revenge. And Lewis Creed, again, I think is a really unique character in the genre, but there's so much awesome, like they're almost like reaching across to each other in the void. Like they're so similar in a lot of ways. It's great.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about Pumpkinhead is that it doesn't feel like it's a movie for kids.
Yeah.
A lot of these sort of...
Nothing in this for kids.
No, like a lot of these sort of rubber monster movies feel like that they're a fun time, slashy, gory, whatever. Which, it has its place and I love a lot of them. But this feels like it's a horror movie for grown-ups.
Yeah, and it's not as nasty as a lot of quote-unquote horror movies for grown-ups. It leans into the sort of childhood appeal of scary stories, I think, because it is basically a fairy tale. It has that going for it. But it what it does perfectly, now that you've said that, it's made me think of it. It lands that whatever that is, like it's got to be a goal on the director's part, right? To get a fairy tale that doesn't feel kitsch and just fucking like cliche fairy tale bullshit that is for adults, but that doesn't scream about it like a lot of shit that Helena Bonham Carter's in or whatever. But there is also like a really late night monster movie and that has nothing for children. That's a pretty massive achievement.
Yeah, no, it's really special. And like obviously Stan Winston is a legend. Like we'll talk in depth about Stan Winston, maybe right now.
Let's go.
He's a legend. He has made every iconic piece of makeup or special effects that you've ever seen, apart from The Thing, which he was involved in, but he didn't do the amazing effects that Rob Bottin did. But like, he directed 2 movies. One of them is good. One of them is a gnome called Norm, which I'm sensing you want to talk a little bit about A Gnome Called Norm at some point.
Yes, sure.
He also directed the You Will Be Mine video, the Guns N' Roses video.
I did not know that.
Which, it mostly sucks.
Right.
It's mostly like them playing live, and then it's intercut with shots from the movie. And I think he's listed as a director because he was second unit on Terminator 2, so a lot of those shots will be his.
Right, okay.
But like the saving grace of the video is that the Terminator meets Guns N' Roses at the end and refers to Axl Rose as a waste of ammo, which is correct.
Bang accurate. I mean, what a career.
and then he also directed the Michael Jackson Ghosts like long form video.
Okay, interesting.
Which was Michael Jackson trying to recapture the magic of Thriller.
Did he have anything to do with Fraggle Rock or The Dark Crystal?
No, that's all Henson's, right?
I think it is, yeah.
I think like the Norm in A Gnome Called Norm has a sort of Dark Crystal vibe, has a little bit of a Gelfling to it.
Kind of my style icon.
Yeah?
No. Again, why do I look like all of these characters? Why am I Stan Winston's nightmare? Made flesh.
I think you're the muse.
Stan Winston's muse. Oh, shit, that's so bleak.
But yeah, obviously he made or did all these effects in all of the amazing things. Jurassic Park, like Friday the 13th, he did some work on like Jason's face, which never was really visible on screen, but like it's there.
It's really important as well. Like I would consider that a vital part of the Jason menace. I mean, I know you don't love it, but he did Austin Powers. He was on Galaxy Quest. He had a finger in Pearl Harbor. He's done so much. Batman Returns. He did Penguin. You know, some of the best shit you've ever seen is this guy.
And he, like I say, he ventured into directing for 2 movies and a few videos. Sort of nailed it and was like, okay, that's nailed. I'll just go back to doing what I do best. So similar to Tom Savini, which obviously we talked about in the Night of the Living Dead remake that obviously he directed. Like maybe it's just like directing is fun, but it's not the fun of being in there with the goo. Like I read that on this specifically, he had basically no hand in the special effects. It was his team from the Stan Winston workshop that did it. That did all the effects, but he was too busy to have any sort of real oversight.
I have a huge hot take for that then. I'm glad you said that. I don't love many of the practical effects in this movie, if I'm honest. I think Pumpkinhead, maybe we're going into Pumpkinhead too early. Stop me if I'm ahead of the curve here.
Go wild.
Pumpkinhead is lit like shit in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, the actual creature is amazing. When you see stills from the movie and when you see it just in a normal room with like some natural light, the detail on that head and the body, everything about it is amazing. But why do they just wash it out in so much blue and white that it flattens all the detail? It just looks fetal and kind of wet sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's not how it looks. That's what pisses me off. It's so grisly and gnarled and muscular and lumpy, and there's a lot of orange and green and grey and stuff on there, and it just comes across looking like like a newborn fetus in the moonlight, it still looks great, don't get me wrong, but I'm still left being like, fuck, why not more gnarly?
Yeah, I feel like they sort of move forward with that, don't they? So it starts off
It changes,
pretty shit, but then obviously we get a lot more detail later on when I think it's meant to sort of look a bit more like Lance Henriksen.
Yeah.
But I agree that there are some pretty shoddy looking effects in here. There are so many effects where it's like Pumpkinhead is in a doorway.
Yeah.
And he's just sort of doing stuff from a doorway, flailing his arms around. And it's like, well, you've got an entire Pumpkinhead suit. Like, why do you need this, like, we're hiding the puppeteers behind the door situation? Like, we know that he can walk into a room. We've seen him walk.
Yeah. We've seen him do so much at this point.
Yeah. I mean, we don't see Pumpkinhead till 50 minutes into the movie, apart from in the sort of cold open bit.
Which surprised me, to be honest, on rewatch. Seeing it in the open, I was like, holy crap, they reveal the monster in the first like minute. You see full head and hand at least like twice, which was great because normally I hate that. And I was like, fuck yeah, this is a scary monster. Show me a little bit right at the start.
Yeah, I feel like less the sort of the washed out lighting. I want him to be slimier. Like we talked about this, I think, on a different episode where like your creature effects, they just look better if they're just like caked in slime.
9 times out of 10, yeah, absolutely.
And so that's obviously Pumpkinhead comes from the earth and is like, so I don't know where the slime's coming from, but like
it comes from a pumpkin patch, and pumpkins are slimy as fuck, right?
Yeah, true.
It's a very dry movie. It's very arid. Lots of brown and orange and red and stuff. I mean, at least for the first half, when Pumpkinhead's not around so much. And I sort of thought that Pumpkinhead reflected that in a way, of it being very crispy and dry. But I like you, want more goo.
Yeah.
Darth, was that a haiku? I think I would really like to see a lot more, dripping orange pumpkin on Pumpkinhead.
Yeah.
But what I'm not doing here is saying that the monster sucks. I think Pumpkinhead is fucking rad. It looks so weird and wrong in a lot of ways and creepy and janky. The movement's great. There's a lot going on with Pumpkinhead that I absolutely adore. I just wish someone had said, should we not blast a white light directly in its face in every scene?
I think another issue that I maybe have with Pumpkinhead, and it might just be because we've got Lance Henriksen in this movie, is that it's a little bit too reminiscent sometimes of like the Giga alien from the Alien franchise.
Yeah, and I think if you're a massive fucking nerd like we are, and a lot of people are, you will have seen the kind of proto xenomorph footage where they're testing the arm movement and the head movement, and they're using bin bags and stuff, and a lot of that looks like Pumpkinhead, and it makes me think, did they just sort of default to like an alien prototype almost, and kind of dust that off out the closet and go with it, which I think is very unfair, but it's a thought that occurs to you when you first see it moving, if you've seen all that other behind the scenes alien footage. So I don't think it's almost like an instinctive comparison. You got a long head, you've got high bony shoulders, you've got a wide gait and a tail. Like, it's xenomorph-tacular, but in all the right ways, I think. Yeah. Pumpkinhead looks best, in my opinion, head on. I think it's the scariest from the front. From the side, it starts to look a little bit goof. And when they start layering those facial elements, like you said, to kind of make it look a little bit more like Lance Henriksen, which I did not notice on first watch and only noticed on this, like, I don't know, fifth watch or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. You start to lose the menace a little bit for me, which I think is supposed to be the effect. But
yeah,
I mean, I could talk about the fucking monster all day long. I think it looks fucking great.
I agree. I think it's a cool... I haven't seen any of the sequels, but I wonder if they get it right, or at least like learn from some of those mistakes. Obviously, they are much lower budget. This is only like a $3 million budget, which
Yeah, dude.
is
Incredible.
tiny
Yeah.
for a movie like this, a
Yeah.
special effects forward movie like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if they build on that and do anything that is better or cooler with those with the effects.
I've been a bit apprehensive about watching the sequels. Maybe it's a Patreon because I don't know. The first one just smashes it. It does everything I want it. It literally does everything I want it to do as a movie, and then it chips out. Yeah, I'm up for watching them. The interesting thing about the monster and the look of the movie generally is that there is nothing that happens in this movie at night that I don't think looks fucking incredible. The nighttime stuff, all the mist, the woods, anything even interior at night, anytime you see Pumpkinhead like shrouded in mist, semi-silhouetted, doing anything, the witch in the woods at night, the sort of running around, frantic mayhem in the woods, everything is shot so perfectly in terms of like the composition of the shot and everything that's in it, the mise en scène, the lighting. Everything looks fucking great. It's only Pumpkinhead that they kind of light a bit weird every now and then. And I think that's budgetary now that you mention it.
Yeah, well, I think the cinematography in this is pretty special. Obviously,
I really fucking love it, yeah.
Bo Jambazelli, who is the cinematographer, obviously, this is one of his first projects. I think we have this conversation with basically every movie, that every single cinematographer on a horror movie, it's like their first feature, and then they go on to do literally everything. But he's the same as that. So, like, obviously, he moves on. Has done some of my favorite, like, low budget genre pictures. So he worked on King of New York, the Abel Ferrara Body Snatchers movie, California with Brad Pitt.
Fuck yeah.
Which is a great movie. And then also another another movie that inspires a Michale Graves-era Misfits song, Boxing Helena.
Oh, okay. Yeah, nice. I didn't know he worked on that. Amazing.
Yeah. Which these are all films with, like, I think he's got a really good, like, approach to working with directors to achieve their vision. A lot of cinematographers, they have a very specific vision, and you hire a cinematographer because you want that style
Sure.
to be part of the way that you approach things. Whereas I think Bo Jambazelli, looking at the work that he's done throughout his career, he's just really good at, like, finding the director's vision and doing that really well.
Yeah.
Because, like, particularly if you think about Stan Winston, this is the first film he's directed. He's been on a lot of sets, but this is the first time that he's actually had to think about composition. And again, like you said, it's similar to the Night of the Living Dead thing, where you would expect the creature to maybe look better because he works so closely with that. Obviously, he did a lot of second unit stuff on movies where he provided the special effects, like Terminator 2, but they're a bit after this. Was that after this? When is Terminator 2? Is it 1990?
I can tell you for a fact that A Gnome Named Norm is 1990, which is incredible to me.
Yeah, it feels like...
Terminator 2 is 91. So he goes, Pumpkinhead, Gnome Named Norm, Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Sick.
Yeah. And then Jurassic Park.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's probably looking at the movie as it's being made. He's looking at dailies, or he's looking at, looking at the monitor and stuff, and he's thinking, this looks fucking great. And it does. But finishing touches on those monster shots, maybe. I just think if they're working together, I mean, I don't know how movies are made. We've made that abundantly clear throughout this podcast, but these guys are working closely together to make this movie look a certain way. And they're dragging up classic monster movie shit like Creature from the Black Lagoon and obviously like The Wolfman. They're throwing so much mist into these shots. They're doing so much with shadow, and they're making everything reminiscent of classic monster movies, but they're doing it in 88, and they're doing it with incredibly, kind of cutting edge monster effects at the time. Right, they're leading into the big transition to a lot of CG and stuff, but they're doing some of the best, is it, you can't call it puppetry, can you? Because it's a combo of suit and animatronics. What do you call that? Suit-animatronics?
Sure.
Suit-animatronics.
Special effects.
Special effects at their peak. And they must be looking at each other like, holy fuck, this is a great marriage of like classic monster movie vision, modern technology, and some pretty wild originality in there as well. You know, like you said, the shots with Pumpkinhead coming through doorways, they're pretty menacing, but they're also working a lot of slasher cliches at the same, well, what are cliches now, but they're working a lot of slasher angles at the same time. So there's a lot of cool shit going into this in a setting that hasn't really had this before. Can you think of any other, you know, very anonymous, you know, American Western town type poverty movies that are, you know, covered in monster movie magic?
Like, I guess Tremors to a lesser extent.
Tremors, yeah. I mean, that leans way into like hick comedy, doesn't it? I don't feel like this. I feel like this is much more compassionate to like people living in the Dust Bowl with no money than Tremors, which is fucking great. Don't get me wrong.
Tremors is the one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
I don't know where this movie is set. Obviously, they shot it in California, but like I don't know if it's set in like Texas or fucking Albuquerque or what. But like,
isn't that great? The anonymity of the setting is fucking brilliant. And the time, what year is this? Like, it's great that you have no idea where or when you are.
I think like the thing that puts it in a time and a place, which is the point, is the 80s dirt bike kids.
Yeah.
Which why is dirt bike so 80s to me? Like they still exist.
It just is. Yeah.
But like there was a time and a place in movies where dirt bikes and skateboards just became like synonymous with a time and a place. It's weird.
I think it's Hollywood's attempt at being teenage as well. It's like, what are the teenagers into? Dirt bikes and skateboards. Like, you can't skate in the desert. What are we going to have? Dirt bikes.
One of the things that I noticed in this, which I noticed this time, which I hadn't really noticed before, is that the city kids, their performances, are fucking terrible. They're awful.
Really?
Like,
do you think so?
Yeah, I think they're all so overwrought and like insane, whereas everybody that's like a local has like these really sort of grounded performances. And I think that's a choice. I think that they did this on purpose to show the difference between how city folk act or the city youth act versus how the real salt of the earth American people act.
I'd be surprised if that wasn't the case. Yeah, that sounds right.
I mean, if it wasn't the case, it's a really fucking lucky accident because like everybody that's like a local, you've got fucking George Buckflower in like one of his rare non-homeless guy roles.
Yeah.
And I love George Buckflower so much.
Yeah.
Every movie, every scene that he's in is my favorite scene in every movie ever.
He's rock solid in this too.
He's amazing in this. Like this is like one of his more meaty roles.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the meatiest role in the world, but like
he has great lines. He has really good dialogue, and his presence is really felt in every scene he's in. I think you're right. I think the kids are supposed to be, look at these fucking idiots. Like, what has the world come to? You know, you've got like, I mean, Ed Harley's whole deal is that he is humble, right? He's humility incarnate, and then he's twisted by grief and guilt and vengeance, and it's like the destruction of all good things. Whereas these kids are like reckless, drunk, entitled, brash, loud, child murderers. It's an accident, sure, but could have seen that coming a mile off. Do you know what I mean? It's an easy comparison to make, but I don't think it's done particularly ham-fistedly in this. I actually really like the kids' performances. I think they're sort of stronger than I remember them being, so it's interesting that to you they're weaker than you remember them being. Dick Warlock's in this movie, by the way. What the fuck?
We've got to love a Dick Warlock.
Yeah, young Richard. I think what's really important though is that juxtaposition. I think that's vital, and it's early in the movie, isn't it? It's pivotal to the plot. It's really important in how we understand Ed, who is, singular, standalone character of depth in the movie. Everyone else, I think, is pitched just right. We don't know too much about these kids. We don't know too much about the other locals. We get everything we need from everyone. I think there's a real lack of romance in this movie, right? Not much love. I
think there was a period in the 80s and the 90s, and I guess before that and after that, so forever, where people just sort of like shoehorn a romance into a movie.
Yeah.
Where it's like these two characters that I guess have had to spend some time together, kind of like in Wolfen, like where two characters have to spend some time together. And one's a man and one's a woman, so they have to bang at some point. Like
inevitably, they fall in love. Yeah.
There's absolutely no need for that in a lot of movies, and sometimes it's really jarring, and sometimes it isn't jarring, but it's like, okay, did we really need to see fucking Albert Finney fuck this woman? Like,
I'm going to go with yes. But in this, there's so much strength in Ed Harley's solitude. It's not even talked about. It's just, I am alone with my son, and now my son is dead. And you just take it. You're just like, fuck, I guess that's how you live. Let's go.
Well, yeah. How do you meet women in this community where there's one family that buy their fucking chicken feed from you?
Yeah.
And there's you and your son in this fucking absolute murder shack shop. The shop that, like, the slasher kids stop at on their way to go get axed up by Jason. Like,
yeah. And accidentally kill a kid. Yeah. And all he's got there is, like, he's selling yams on his porch, and he's astonished when somebody stops there to buy something. It's clear that this is like subsistence farming with like the facade of commerce. And I love that about his character's start in the movie, because we know from the flashback that he's the kid in the beginning who witnesses a Pumpkinhead revenge killing, right? We know that he's got his roots in his twisted roots in the soil of witchcraft, and that's fucking great. And then we kind of, I don't know about you, but I kind of expect him to grow up to be like a relatively quote unquote normal member of mainstream society who has this massive collapse and fall into, you know, this, whatever the world beneath the world is where the witch lives. But he is such a lonely man.
Yeah. It's an amazing performance as well. Like, I think Lance Henriksen is one of the unsung heroes of acting. Like, he always, I've said it before, but he always brings it. Like, it's always good. I can't imagine. I watched a Western with him in it relatively recently, which was called like Death of a Gunslinger or something, which I rated really highly. And it's just because, and it's like a absolute bottom of the barrel, sort of low budget Western that I saw on like one of those dodgy channels on Roku.
Right.
But it was amazing. Like his performance at the middle of it, it's just, yeah, he can't not bring it. And like, he's got these sort of buck teeth that they've like these sort of teeth prosthesis in.
Yeah.
He chews gum like almost no other actor. I think in like gum chewing actors, there's him and there's Bill Paxton, and everyone else just can't do it. Do you know what I mean?
Can't chew gum. Yeah, I hear you. I don't think a lot of people would sing the praises of his range, but all I'm going to say is Bishop to Ed Harley.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's playing a fucking robot in the future who bleeds white fucking goo and who has so much to do in that movie. Bishop does so much in terms of robot range. And then we go to, you know, grief-stricken, revenge-seeking Dust Bowl farmer guy. Like, that's an incredible leap in such a tight window of your career. You have to credit the man as being an incredible actor to pull that off, to the point where both roles are fucking iconic to two similar but different audiences. He's a facial guy, which we love, right? We love a facial. We
do love a facial at the Final Transmission podcast.
And he's slaying the facials.
His range is subtle, but it's there. Like it's like he can do that sort of stoic, robotic, like these movements are happening because I'm programmed, and I'm programmed really well, so I look pretty human, but not quite human. Whereas in this, it's like it's a different kind of stoicism. It's a different vibe altogether. It's just, he's great. He's just fucking great.
I watched an interview with him years ago, and the interviewer was asking him, I think they were talking about facial expressions and how he maybe doesn't quite qualify for the category of actors that we love because of their faces, you know, your Goldblums, your Defoes, etc., but that he has, you know, one of the best faces in the game. And he's very humble about it. He just says, that's my face. You get what you're given kind of thing. But he also does say that he carries a lot of... He looks like a working man, right? He's got like a kind of grizzled look. And he says he kind of pushes that forward in his performances, that he's carrying years of graft on his face, basically. And I bet that's just because he fucking worked his ass off in Hollywood. Do you know what I mean? The guy has grafted for fucking centuries. The thing that I discovered through this movie that I want to watch that I've never seen is a TV series called Millennium. Have you seen Millennium?
I love Millennium.
I've never seen it. It's ahead of me. It's on my list now because it's him in a leading role in a TV series about fucking FBI profiling. It's great.
Yeah, well, it's an X-Files spin-off, so it gets cancelled before its time. So it doesn't. If you watch Millennium, it doesn't really wrap up the way that you want it to. But then they basically, Chris Carter, who is the showrunner obviously, who created X-Files. He basically brings Frank Black back into X-Files so they can wrap the show up as like a proper conclusion.
That's fascinating. Holy
it's
fuck,
really
I can't
good.
wait to watch this. Great. That's some...
And like the lone gunmen like pop up. It's like it's a shared universe thing, and I would
brilliant.
Absolutely recommend it.
Wholeheartedly endorsed by Jamie Carruthers. I'm all in.
Yeah. He is just a working actor. Like he is just working constantly. He's got like 10 credits every year since 1980.
Yeah.
Like it's insane.
In this day and age, just incredible, right?
Yeah. And like he doesn't age.
If he does, he ages incredibly well.
I think like he was one of those actors that started off 45 and has sort of stayed looking identical forever.
Yeah, he always looked, to me as a younger movie viewer, you know, you kind of have this category in your head of like old men. And even though he's probably fucking 35 in Pumpkinhead, I remember thinking he's got to be, 60. He's got one of those old soul type faces, a really, like, in my opinion, very handsome man, and knows how to chuck that face around. Holy cow.
He's got one of those sort of like Cronenberg like movie faces.
Absolutely. Yep. That could be hammed up for horror, but I don't think ever is. He really gives measured facial performances, and I have the utmost respect for that.
He's just fucking great.
Why is this witch credited as Haggis?
Because that's her name.
Does anyone say that name in the movie?
It's a weird choice, isn't it? Because I guess like hag that's the vibe. Like that's what you would might call a witch in 1988. But like,
I guess,
and it sounds sort of oldie worldy. But like we all know what fucking haggis is. But I guess Americans in the 80s, haggis is an exotic thing. Maybe.
I mean, that's actually not a bad shout. I guess like the intended audience of this movie, kids with $3 in their hands to go to a monster movie. Maybe haggis is like a folkloric sounding scary witch name. To us, it's nothing but a fat dude, right? Haggis is the nickname you give the big guy. Not the creepy, skinny, withered witch. I don't know. I like it. The more I think about it, the more I like it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the witch. Maybe the witch places this in like Appalachia as well, rather than like...
There's a lot of questionable accent work in this movie that makes it hard to place. These people are all quote unquote Southern, but it could be fucking anywhere. She feels Appalachian. She slips into Irish here and there, which is really funny. I don't know. I mean, I find this witch horrifying beyond words. I love this witch.
I think the witch is kind of whatever for me. Like she's just sort of there, but the scenes in the witch's cabin are my favorite scenes in this movie. They're like they're shot really cleverly. They're lit really cleverly. Mm-hmm. So like when Ed Harley first goes there and meets Haggis the witch, it's shot in a way where there's just massive contrast. So it's like red and it's black. It's light and it's dark. There's two choices in front of you here, Ed Harley. You got the light path or the dark path, and that's it. There are no shades of grey here. And then obviously there's all this cool stuff in the cabin that's like all grotty little cabin stuff, and like an owl and a rat and other little spooky creatures.
Everything's twiggy and woven.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like it's really good. And then after Ed Harley makes his decision and he goes back, or not even that actually, after Ed Harley makes his decision, the lighting sort of shifts slightly and you get some more shades of grey in there.
Yeah.
And then when he goes back to the cabin later and he's trying to undo this decision that he's made, the contrast is back there again. It's like black and white, you've made your choice. It's really, really clever, like visual storytelling that is, it's quite subtle, but like it just puts those thoughts in your brain without you even really knowing it.
It's really clever, and it feels like a different place in those scenes for me. It shifts. There's it's such a tiny space, but the atmospheric shift and the sort of, like you said, the way that it's lit and the mise en scène and everything there makes it feel like this weird sort of morphing space. Like it's almost like they're moving her around. I don't know, it's really clever. I liked it a lot. I think it's some of the strongest stuff, some of the eeriest stuff is in that cabin. And I think this is a really spooky, eerie movie. And it's scenes like that just kind of keep you in that eerie space where you could be lost in, silly monster, funny goof time. But it stays genuinely creepy because of stuff like that. Subtle stuff.
Yeah, I think like those scenes, like they're pulling from. I mean, maybe this is just me because I like comics, but I feel like they're pulling from like a comics type space.
Yeah, definitely.
It feels a little bit Tales from the Crypt. It feels like Frank Miller artwork, like Sin City type stuff.
Yeah.
And it just makes for a really striking visual, like at the center of this movie, and like basically the turning point of this movie. So once Eddie dies, things get fucked up, and like the point in which Ed Harley goes here, it's the point of no return. So why not make it as dark and as ominous as possible? And like it's like we said, it's worth noting that we don't get any of this really spooky stuff apart from the cold open until 50 minutes into this movie, which is only an hour and 26.
Yeah.
So like, in order for us to go along for this ride, we need those really strong central performances. We need like a really interesting visual story. We need to know that there's this sort of sense of foreboding and what's going to happen, because obviously we all know what's going to happen in a movie called Pumpkinhead, where this lone guy by himself lives with his son that he absolutely idolizes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a testament to Stan Winston as a director, to Bojan Bazeli as a cinematographer, to the writing, to the performances, that you're carried along through 50 minutes of just a guy and his kid and some shitty dirt bike teens.
Yeah.
Before you get any scary stuff in this horror movie.
Yeah.
It's really it just makes it special.
I think going back to your point about the comic book feel of some of those scenes, to me the whole movie is because it's made by such a gang of workhorses. Everything feels really well blocked, so everything feels like it links, it fits together like the way squares fit together like a comic book. It just goes from strength to strength to strength, to really well composed, really well structured scene to the next. And I think it's broken in it's got a classic 3-act structure, but there is that fucking big old turning point around the halfway mark. And the movie feels really comfortable to watch, I think, because it ticks so many of the boxes that you don't really realize you need ticking when you're watching a horror movie. It's paced well. It's the right length. It goes to the right depth and the right places with all the characters for you to get everything you need from them without being overwhelmed by anything except Lance Henriksen's performance, which you're supposed to be, fully overwhelmed by. And then you've got a monster that does everything a monster's supposed to do, but that does loads of stuff in a slightly original way. And visually, it's arresting from start to finish in ways that are both really familiar and really exotic. So it just fucking does everything to the best of its ability and to the absolute maximum that you need in a 1 hour 26 monster romp. And then it takes you to the absolute depths of human despair, and it takes you to places that are almost funny. It does loads of stuff really well. And I just don't think it gets enough credit for how well it's constructed as a movie. It's a real feat of movie making in terms of the way that everything fits together. It shouldn't be this good, really, should it? It's called Pumpkinhead, for fuck's sake.
Like literally, that's the thing. It's a late 80s monster movie. Like, it shouldn't be this good, but it is.
Yeah.
Because you've like we've said, you've got Lance Henriksen giving as good a performance as he's ever given.
I agree.
Like, he's a solid actor, so he always gives a good performance. But like, this might be his best. This Near Dark and Aliens are like pretty much the peak.
He doesn't have as much to lean on in this as he does in other movies, because I think in Aliens he's part of a bit of an ensemble cast.
Yeah.
He has a gimmick in that a lot of the scenes where he does some of his best acting, he's chopped in half, or there's a plot element that's really bringing out the best in his character. In this, he's just dry, sad guy for the whole movie, and he pulls it off perfectly.
Yeah, no, I think he really does. I mean, there are some silly moments in this film. None of them are Lance Henriksen related. There's like a moment where one of the girls is like, "Why is this happening?" And it's like, yeah, because you killed that kid. The kid died.
Smashed a kid with a dirt bike.
Yeah, like, so that's why this is happening. Obviously, it's maybe a disproportionate response, but that's why it's happening. Yeah. And then there's the other scene where the guy's trying to start the dirt bike and Pumpkinhead's holding the chain, like, "Got your chain, buddy."
So
like, that's
dumb.
Seems a little bit out of character for our Pumpkinhead, but
Pumpkinhead doesn't behave the way you expect the sort of summoned/birthed witch woodland creature. That's kind of what I love about Pumpkinhead. kind of mischievous and definitely fucking evil as hell. My favorite moment in the whole movie, and what I think is the scariest moment in this movie, and I honestly put this in my top 10 scary moments of things that creep me out movies, full stop, is when he's killed the girl and he's holding her head at the window and just kind of marionetting it up and down. It's shot so well. And then he just presses her face against the window and rubs it around, and then he smashes her through the window. And it's everything. It sums up Pumpkinhead to me. It's ominous, it's menacing, it's evil, it's mischievous, it's dark, it's bleak, and then it's violent as hell. And that scene just blew me away. I think first watch scared the crap out of me, so you never really appreciate something as much when it scares you. Second watch, third watch, I wait for that scene because it's so grisly. I love it to bits.
And like one of the really good things about that scene in particular is that you don't know if it's a prosthetic or if it's a model.
Yeah.
Like the effect on that head are so good. Like it could just be the actress, and she's got her eyes closed, and they're mashing her face through. Like
I thought it was the actress. If it's a prosthetic, it's the best I've ever seen, because I'm all in on that for the whole time that scene's happening. I think it's a real head.
The sort of the violent scenes, the killings aren't, especially a lot of it takes place off screen, and you see a really grisly aftermath.
Yeah,
which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah. There's a lot of like dropping and throwing and you know, loud noises, and then someone's dead and stuff like that. I have no problem with that whatsoever in this movie.
You know, I think it's really interesting because like when the killing takes place off screen, like Pumpkinhead drags the guy up into the tree or whatever, you're like, okay, well, I guess this death is taking place off screen. And then it like bait and switches you with like the really gnarly, violated corpse of this guy. And that happens a number of times, and you never quite get your footing with it because it's like, okay, the killing's taking place off screen. I guess we're in a relatively tame place. And then all of a sudden, here's the dead girl's face being wiped across the window. Yeah. Like fucking Ralph Macchio.
Shredded.
It's wild.
Because I'm always led to believe by early monster movies that the reason we're not seeing the monster kills is because they didn't have the resources to do it. That's why you get a lot of monsters just strangling people and stuff. So you get a lot of off-screen kills in classic monster movies. And I think what Pumpkinhead's doing here is putting a really cool, quite subtle twist on that and bringing in the slasher elements. Some of it's off-screen, some of it's not. Some of it's violent as hell. Some of it's, you know, almost a pulled punch. I think it's doing everything and keeping you off balance. And that's what I mean about the mischief. Like, you never know where you stand with Pumpkinhead. You don't know if you could reason with Pumpkinhead, which obviously you can't. You don't know if you could communicate in some way, if you could bargain. You don't know if you could kill Pumpkinhead. You've got no idea. It's such a wonderful, unknown, just many, many layered beast. And that's what's intriguing to me about sequels, because you know Pumpkinhead can be summoned again. So you know, like, fuck me, this could go anywhere. And that's what I love ultimately about that monster.
I sort of think the sequels are implied. It's kind of like we don't need to tell the story because the story is the story that you tell in your head. Like, oh, now Lance Henriksen as Harley, he is a Pumpkinhead and is being buried in the pumpkin patch. Yeah. Like, we know that. So we don't need to know. I wonder if they bring in like the necklace into the sequels and things like that, so we know that it's the same Pumpkinhead or whatever. But like the movie tells you that there are more stories here, but you don't need to see those stories in order to enjoy that. And it sort of feels maybe like it's a bit cheap, particularly if they're straight to video or straight to Sci-Fi Channel movies, which the sequels were. Two of them were in fucking 2006. No good straight to Sci-Fi Channel movies were happening in 2006. I think 2006 is the year that those fucking two Return of the Living Dead sequels came out with Peter Coyote in them. Oof. Like Rave to the Grave and whatever the other one was called. Like nobody needed those. No. So yeah, I mean maybe we'll do a Patreon episode where we talk about the Pumpkinhead sequels.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the same principle as the Pet Sematary. The idea of a Pet Sematary sequel. You know, you're told throughout the movie that people have been buried there before and animals have been buried there before. Scary as fuck, great scene setting, don't need to see the movie. Don't need a prequel, don't need a sequel. Leave it the fuck alone. But here we are.
Like the thing.
Yeah,
like we didn't need a sequel that shows what happens at the fucking Norwegian camp. Like we don't need that. The what happens at the Norwegian camp is is implied throughout or at the beginning of the thing. Like, we don't need to see what happens there. That movie has played out in our brain when we see the shit.
Agreed.
So, yeah, we didn't need that.
It's better in my brain. I love, again, I know we've said this before, but I love going to bed after a movie like this and imagining the extended universe. Do you know what I mean? Imagining that's enough for me. Like, leave me the fuck alone, Hollywood.
Yeah.
I just want to think. But, that being said, I am intrigued because they exist, and I will check them out just because I love the feeling I get from this movie. And it's a steady burn of a feeling from start to finish. You can't watch this movie and do anything else. It's arresting enough that it keeps you in, and it creates such an atmosphere of tension from start to finish. It's weird, right? Because it's bleak and it's punishingly sad, but it doesn't fall into the same category as a lot of those movies in my head for me. It still has that element of action to it that keeps it more of a kind of fizzy, bitey, shot by shot, blow by blow, slow build movie, rather than like a super sad, dreary nothing.
Well, like, I think if we're sort of comparing it directly to Pet Sematary, which I am in this sentence, in Pet Sematary, obviously it's the guilt that drives your guy to put Gage in the cemetery, and he comes back and it's all fucked up, and obviously grief is bad, and we've got to stop Gage. Yeah. But like, there's a sadness there, whereas like in this, obviously, it's all about revenge. So it's the revenge is brought on by the grief.
Yeah.
So like, there's a bit more of an action element there too, and obviously as Lance Henriksen reconciles his grief, or at least is forced to reconcile his grief based on having to experience directly what that revenge feels like to him.
Yeah.
And be physically affected by the revenge that's happening, even though it's happening, but like with a third party. Like he's forced to reconcile his grief in those moments, and therefore has to then figure out how to stop it from happening. And so you get a much more sort of action-centric final act with Lance Henriksen effectively being the hero again by having to figure out how to stop Pumpkinhead, and ultimately the only way to stop Pumpkinhead is to shoot yourself in the fucking face.
Yeah, he blows his own pumpkin off.
He does.
Amazing scene. I love the whole. Normally, if it's a big action ending to a movie, even to be honest, Aliens, I'm just like, snore. Get me back to the character stuff. I love the ending of this. I think it's so well shot, and Pumpkinhead is so believably an action threat at the end of this movie that I just fucking love it. And when he does ultimately, spoiler alert, shoot himself in the head, it's great. It's off screen, sure. We do get a cut back, but it's not made a huge deal out of. There's not a huge swelling orchestral, arrangement around it. It's just like, she's in danger, he feels bad, he's realized the only way to kill it is to blap himself in the noodle, and he does.
He does. I mean, it doesn't quite work. He doesn't die, so then she has to kill him, and you get one of your favorite shoot me, kill me scenes.
Yeah, love it. Top 5.
It's not like I'm dying, so kill me. This hurts so much. It's just like,
it's all in the eyes.
You have to kill me. Like, you have to do it. Otherwise,
and his whole, when we finally realize the two are linked, the movie does quite a good job, I think, of not babying us with that, but not making it, so subtle that you miss it. But the stuff with Lance Henriksen's eyes, all the makeup on the eyes and his face and his expressions, it's all absolutely top tier for me. It's scarier than any zombie. It's possession level facial makeup. It's absolutely superb. Do you like that end sequence with the flamethrower and the, all that kind of, whatever we're calling it, the final showdown with Pumpkinhead? Are you into that?
Yeah, I think it loses a bit of steam, like right at the end. I think, like, I love the kill me stuff. I think that's great.
Yeah.
And like, we're in on this movie because Lance Henriksen and his performance.
Yeah.
So like, once his performance sort of dies, the movie sort of stops being great.
Sure.
I think.
Yeah.
But it all works. It's all shot nicely. I think, like I say, the motorcycle teens aren't my favorite, and they're pretty interchangeable, and they could basically be superimposed from any slasher movie or monster movie from the time. So yeah, so once Lance Henriksen's out of the picture, literally, then I'm less interested.
You're left with less. He's gone.
Yeah.
mercifully, you don't have long without him, right?
No, and then obviously he's buried. He's got the necklace on.
Yeah,
it's cool. It's a cool ending.
yeah, super.
And there's
cool
no
ending.
jumping out of the grave.
Yeah,
Final scare moment or anything like that. It's a sad ending, and I respect that.
I've got an enormous amount of respect for a sad ending.
Yeah,
It's great. I mean, listen, we could talk about this for 1,000 years. I don't know why though, because it shouldn't provoke so much conversation. It's just so well made.
it really is. It's just such a cut above everything that's similar from this age, and like people don't talk about it in the same breath as like The Fly.
No, I don't think you should really.
I think there's a lot of stuff that it has in common with The Fly in terms of like the way that we sort of transform and the way that like we become the thing that we hate.
Yeah, it does actually. It does service to really deep and complex human emotions through the vehicle of horror in a pretty similar way, actually. I think I would agree with that. This might be a backhanded compliment, but I think one of the things that makes Pumpkinhead stand out above other movies of the era and genre, etc., is that it doesn't make any of the same mistakes. Doesn't make any massive fuck-ups. Doesn't, seriously meander off in any of the key areas. It's just strong and steady in every vital. And I think that, while that is a massive achievement, maybe it's what separates it from some trash. Do you know what I mean? Trash will quite willingly fly off into too much here or too little there, and consciously do so in almost a self-sabotaging way. Whereas I think Pumpkinhead is so rock solid and steady in all those areas that it kind of wins the fight by kind of, it's like an attrition thing.
Yeah, I guess like nobody's gonna look at this and think that it's a James Cameron film or it's a Cronenberg movie or something of that level. But you're right. I think it does sit below that, but above so much of that other stuff by being really solidly directed, really solidly put together with on the most part great performances.
Yeah,
it's just good.
If
you haven't watched Pumpkinhead by now, we've ruined it, but it is good. Go watch it.
You should watch it. And I would recommend, this is a bit weird, but I would recommend looking at loads of stills from the movie after you've watched it, just to really soak up some of the stuff that's just shot differently to what's in the movie, because there's so much, they obviously had a lot of snap happy people on set, and a lot of people have photographed the costumes and the models and everything, since there's a real like corner of the internet that's dedicated to like documenting the Pumpkinhead phenomenon. So sink your teeth into the rich visuals of this movie after you've seen it, because it's great. Yeah.
Well, shall we take a quick break and then come back and give our final thoughts?
Let's do that.
Let's absolutely do that right now.
Woof.
Come on, man. Does that thing even work? No. There's nothing out there. It's just dead air.
Okay, we're back, Sam.
We're back.
We're so back. Like a vertebrae.
Honorable shout out to the kid in this movie. So cute.
Huge. Yeah.
Totally adorable. Crushed by a motorcycle. Very, very good performance.
He died as he lived.
Running around under motorbikes.
What else has this kid been in? He's got such good kid face.
He's great. And what I love about him is that they kind of play him off as being quite a simple child. He's obviously just ripe for the slaughter in so many ways, but it's all the more tragic because he's such a sweet little simple boy.
Yeah. So he's the little kid in The Lost Boys.
No way.
Yeah. He looks much older in The Lost Boys than he does here.
He does.
And The Lost Boys is a year or so earlier. I guess it's shot a year or so earlier. So like, it's weird. He didn't do an awful lot after that.
Good kid. Great death.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
R.I.P. Dead kids. This one goes out to all the dead children out there. R.I.P.
This one goes out. It's not Christmas anymore. Jamie is off the chain. Right. Let's wrap this pumpkin up.
Okay. Do you want to give us your final thoughts?
1988. Not much good happened. Pumpkinhead was one of the... Well, really? What was good in 88?
I feel like 88 is a good year for horror movies. A good year for good horror movies.
Maybe I was snoozing on 88. I need to revisit. To quote the band Sometime Never, I hate 88. It's not true. Pumpkinhead, I think, is a really, really strong very simple, but very well executed horror movie from the year 1988. I love so much about it. If anyone says, do you want to watch Pumpkinhead? My answer is almost always yes, because it has that little place in my heart that's just thoroughly rewatchable, super comforting monster movie with real backbone, guts, heart, and soul. It looks a bit minging in the beginning, and then it looks fucking fantastic for the second half of the movie. It ticks a lot of my personal preference boxes when it comes to monster movies, and I just wouldn't want anyone to not see it if they wanted a movie that makes you feel all those feelings. So go out and watch Pumpkinhead. I'm going to give it 5 mashed up kids caught in the chain of a dirt bike out of 5. I really, really like it a lot.
Like we've said, strong performances throughout, apart from the kids, but that's on purpose. It looks amazing. It's shot beautifully. It's insane that Stan Winston didn't do more directing, and when he did, it was that fucking gnome movie, which looks like ass.
Yeah.
We didn't talk in depth about a gnome called Norm, and it looks like it was shat out of an ass.
It is shite front to back. It looks weak as piss.
Yeah. I mean, and I also am thoroughly against like revisionist Anthony Michael Hall as anything but the nerdy little twerp from Weird Science, or Breakfast Club. If that's your particular poison, it's not mine. Weird Science is mine.
Continue. You know how much I love the Breakfast Club, and I love that guy.
I know that you're a Breakfast Club guy. I am much more a Weird Science guy.
Yeah, I like them both, but Breakfast Club any day of the week.
Yeah, I think like him, latter day him. Did you ever see the show he was in? He was in the Dead Zone.
Yeah, I
just don't understand him. I can't see him as not that guy, even though he looks much more hench and in his 30s and like, or however old he was at that point. Like, I just, yeah.
You know, people say someone ages well or they age poorly. He aged weird.
He did age weird. He aged into a different guy.
He aged like Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah, I think Macaulay Culkin aged super weird.
Yeah, mutant levels weirdness.
I think maybe Macaulay Culkin is a Pumpkinhead of Macaulay Culkin.
Fucking hell. Okay, who would win in a fight between Pumpkinhead,
Kevin McAllister versus Pumpkinhead.
Pumpkinhead's breaking into the McAllister house. Who's winning? Kevin or Pumpkinhead?
Is the Pumpkinhead, is it Joe Pesci? Is it like he's awoken Pumpkinhead because he's so mad at what happened in the events of Home Alone 1?
Joe Pesci head. Is this a revisionist Home Alone 2?
Marv
dies. Marv dies. Okay. No, I tell you what. Marv kills Pesci with that crowbar blow to the sternum, which would kill any human being on Earth.
Yeah. Well, everything that happens in that film would kill anyone.
Sure, but that fucking the one that gets me every time is the crowbar to the chest. So he takes him to the pet cemetery and buries him in Haggis's magic box, and out comes Marv Head. And
Marvin Head.
Wait, Pesci. It's Pesci. Out comes Pesci Head, and Pesci Head is going for revenge on Kevin McAllister. So, who wins?
Well, I think this is interesting because it means that every time Kevin hurts Pesci Head, Marv feels it too.
Yeah.
So, like, we're already.
Premise.
It is a great premise.
And the South Bend shovel slayer's there, just like slaying with his shovel. This is like how that fucking Winnie the Pooh movie got made. This could be
in 100 years when Home Alone enters the public domain. we are our great grandchildren are making Pesci Head.
Pesci Head. Brackets Home Alone 2.
Home Alone 2.
Home Alone 2. Brackets Pesci Head.
Cousin Pesci's Island Adventure.
Where is it set? Is it New York?
I think it's set. I think maybe the family go on holiday to Appalachia.
Yeah, maybe it's in like Hatchet territory. Maybe we get a Hatchet cameo in the background, like a Bigfoot thing of fucking Victor Crowley in the background at one point.
This is a great movie.
Dude, I'm making it in my head as we speak, and it's brilliant.
I don't know who wins. Maybe it's like Alien versus Predator. Whoever wins, we lose, or whatever.
Yeah. Do you think Stan Winston's up for dusting off the old directorial gloves? Is he dead? Yeah, he's dead. Sorry, mate. 2008.
He is dead. Yeah.
But who cares? Will he direct it? Yes or no?
I mean, in as much as it's definitely going to get made, he will definitely direct it.
Yeah, in the place where this really happens, he's the one directing it. You know, the tagline for Pumpkinhead 2 is very clever. It's they couldn't leave dead enough alone.
Nice.
Pretty great.
Yeah.
Boy, did we derail your final thoughts. Very sorry.
My final thoughts is 10 out of 10 for Home Alone 2 Pesci Head.
Oh, boy. Who wouldn't give that movie 10 out of 10?
It would be amazing. And like, I still want to know who would win. Obviously, Kevin wins because it's a movie and Kevin wins.
Pumpkinhead wins. Pesci Head wins, and he twists Kevin's head off like a jar, and you see the fucking spine come out and the stretchy sinews just pop as he fucking throws it out the window of the house, and it rolls along in the snow and then winks at you, and then credits.
We went into fucking Freddy vs. Jason territory. I don't want that.
That's where I was going.
I don't want that. That's the worst.
Sorry. All right, less the wink. Then the South Bend Shovel Slayer scoops the head up, dumps it in a bucket, and then the next movie is Home Alone 3, the South Bend Shovel Slayer versus Pesci Head.
Well, yeah, maybe he shovels it and he puts the head into a bucket, and the bucket's already full of heads. So, like, we're also revising the South Bend Shovel Slayer.
Yep. Terrifier vibes.
Yeah.
Off we go. We're off to the races.
We are off to the races. Our dicks are off to the races.
Our dicks are hot, heavy, hard, and racing right now, let me tell you. We just reached our peak. We're at a rolling boil.
Okay, so Pumpkinhead.
Yep.
It's really good, isn't it?
It's great.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
I've said everything about Pumpkinhead.
Yeah.
It's just really, really worth your time. Even if you think like that late 80s era sort of monstery, slashery vibes aren't for you.
Yeah.
This will either change your mind or at least be the one film that you get.
Yeah, it slips in. It slips in and slips out. It doesn't fit where it is, but not in a bad way. It just does a better job than a lot of movies of the time. And it's a rental classic. It's one that you can't come to too late in life. I wholeheartedly recommend you watch it.
Yeah, and like I said, I think it's a better movie for being an adult.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
I would give it 12 out of 12 window wipes with a dead broad's face.
Ugh, it's chilling. That scene is easily one of my all-time faves. A horror classic moment. Well played, Pumpkinhead. Great work. Thanks for listening to the Final Transmission podcast. We hope you've had a great time with us today. Jamie, is there anything you want to say to the listeners before we chip?
Merry Taintmas. We'll see you. I mean, it's not going to be the Taint when this comes out. It'll be the new year. So Merry New Year.
Hope you enjoyed the Taint. Have a great new year.